Hi, Richard here. So today I wanted to talk to you about something I hear learners say all the time, something I hear learners say too much, and it's the word very. Now, English is a great language. We have so many words in this beautiful language, so we can think of some better options than very. Now, sometimes you can say it in English. It's not that you can never say it, it's just don't say it all the time. So today, I'm just going to show you one of the ways that you can avoid overuse of very. And they're called extreme adjectives. For example, instead of saying something like, oh, today it's very hot. Well, we actually have a word in English that means very hot. So very hot, why don't you say boiling instead? Or very cold. Instead of very cold, maybe you should say freezing. So these are what we call extreme adjectives. Now be careful, because when we use one of these extreme adjectives, boiling, freezing, it's the maximum. So we can't say, sometimes I hear learners say, it was very boiling. No, we can't say that because boiling is the maximum. So there is no very boiling because boiling is very hot or very, very hot. Right, so just be careful. When you use these extreme adjectives, you cannot use very with it. So let's go through a few of these. I'm sure there's some you already know. So for example, instead of very good, what can we say? Well, we actually have a few options. We could say wonderful or fantastic or excellent. Instead of very bad, we could say something like awful, terrible, horrible. Very funny, we could say hilarious. Very big, huge or gigantic. Very small, we could say tiny, or we could say minuscule, for example. So these words, these extreme adjectives, they're going to make you sound a lot more fluid, a lot more creative in your use of the language. And also, they're really important, especially if you want to take something like the IELTS or the TOEFL or the TOEIC exam. You really need to get used to these extreme adjectives because they're going to make you sound a lot better, especially in the speaking section of the TOEIC or especially the IELTS. That's a really big one. So we just did some of the ones that I expect some of you already knew. Very good, fantastic, very bad, awful. I'm sure most of you know that if you're at an intermediate level. But let's go through some today that you might not know. So for example, very clean. Instead of very clean, you can say spotless. And opposite that, instead of very dirty, you could say filthy. Very interesting, fascinating, or very surprising, astounding. So today is just a little taste of that, but there are some extreme adjectives for nearly every situation in English. Pretty much every adjective has an extreme adjective. Now, I'm not saying you should use them all the time, because if you use them all the time, people will think you're a little bit too dramatic. Oh, I went to the shop and it was boiling and it was just absolutely packed, and then so if you use it too much, it sounds too dramatic. But you just need to sprinkle them into the language here and there, just so you're not using very all the time. I remember last time I was in London, I was in a cafe, and next to me there were a couple of women talking, and they were talking really loud, so I could hear their conversation, unfortunately. And I remember this one woman, and she said, oh, and it was very great, and then we went here, and then it was very hot, and very, very, and she must have said the word very 30 times in 1 minute, which is obviously too much. So you don't want to be like that woman. So I hope you aren't exhausted, very tired, exhausted after that little video. Try to use some of those extreme adjectives next time you're speaking English. And also, why not try and put some down in the comments as well, and I'll check them for you. I hope that helps. Thanks.